a stormy life, extraordinary adventures, great misfortunes, frequent happiness at times leading to brilliant success, and coupled with these, a decent memory might raise any man above his ordinary station, and if besides he has traveled for over 12 years, explored a great part of Europe and the New World, and probed into all ranks of society and all conditions, one might believe him entitled to claim a right for his opinions.
It is with these words that le Comte Alexandre de Tilly starts the first chapter of his memoirs, relating his life as a young man at Versailles and Paris in the late 18th century. Tilly, with his bold and tender air, lovely face, and irresistible charm, was an aristocrat, seducer, fighter, and gambler, but also a writer, and known as such in Europe and in the New World. Homme à bonne fortune, adored by women, and of singularly attractive appearance, he was commonly known as le beau Tilly, the handsome Tilly, and this romantic libertine spent and wasted his entire fortune and estate chasing pleasure and adventures. Alexandre de Tilly was from Normandy, from an old aristocratic family, and he occupied at Versailles a place befitting his rank as a page of the Queen Marie-Antoinette. He is first of all a man of his century. He belongs to l'Ancien Régime, and he is the product of an education and an upbringing which no longer exists. His memoirs are not only filled with these gallantry strategies and adventures, he also shares so many precious anecdotes about Marie-Antoinette and her courts, all the famous aristocrats of his times, the writers of this time, the life in Paris with his actresses and comedians, and all the leaders of the Revolution. As all the well-bred gentilhomme of his time, Tilly was skilled in the art of writing. He owned this inimitable style of the 18th century. Impertinent, funny, chiseled, and always elegant. His readers cannot help being charmed by his style, and to this day his memoirs, for unknown reason, are still the least read and the least commented of a century which is so eagerly studied. But first he was nicknamed Le Beau Tilly, and known as the most handsome man of his time. But no authentic portrait seems to have been traced. The only image we have is a presumed engraving portrait from the middle of the 19th century of unknown origin. The only sure description we have comes from his passport. He was 5'5", he had an oval and rather pale face, black hair, large black eyes, and a regular nose. During his teenagehood, he was one of the 12 pages of the Queen Marie-Antoinette, a sort of super highly privileged little high school forming future officers at Versailles and only open to the purest, the richest, and the oldest aristocracy in the kingdom. L'aristocratie d'épée, the military aristocracy. The candidates have to prove their nobility since 1550. They have to be at least 5'2", 15 years old, be in a good shape, with a handsome face and well-bred. At Versailles, the pages only had to study between 10 to 11 and from 2 to 4 o'clock. The rest of the day was spent learning, riding, fencing, and dancing. They also had to be seen around the Queen Marie-Antoinette during the magnificent winter balls at Versailles. They had to take care of guests, lead them to the supper table, offering them ice cream, leading them to their carriages, running from one corner to the room to the other, and finishing the night sleeping under the big marble staircase, their pockets filled with oranges and candies. But when their presence was not required at Versailles, they could do all they wanted. Le Grand Écuyer, who was their supervisor, said, "Their nobility and their sense of honor must be their only guide. They are not supervised and shall not be." So you can be sure they flew at once to Paris and accomplished all sorts of extravagances and mischief, totally guided by their sense of honor, such as troubling public balls, yelling to the actors on stage in theaters, fighting, or even visiting prostitutes, and even put in jail. The police records of the time are filled with their deeds and mischief. Alexandre de Tilly will spend 3 years at Versailles. seeing the Queen Marie-Antoinette almost every day. He is surely the one who depicted the most honest and loyal portrait of her. Grand connaisseur of female beauty, let's see what he thought of Marie-Antoinette's supposed royal beauty. And you can trust a seducer when it comes to beauty.
I have heard many people talking about the beauty of this princess. I must confess I have never entirely shared this opinion. She had eyes that were not beautiful, but could reveal the whole range of feeling. Kindness or aversion could be depicted in her looks more markedly than I have met them elsewhere. I am not sure that her nose rightly belonged to her type of face. Her mouth was decidedly unpleasant. The thick, protruding, and at times drooping underlip has been pointed out as giving nobility and distinction to her appearance. It could have been of use only to portray anger and indignation, and this is not the usual look on beauty's face. Her skin was admirable. Her shoulders and neck matched it. Her waist might have been more elegant, but I have never met since with arms and hands more beautiful.
Though he has known foreign women in Paris, he left France during the French Revolution and seduced and loved women in many countries, including England, Germany. He even married a young American heiress in Philadelphia in 1799. As he liked to repeat, there is a seduction for every woman, and the strategies to seduce an English or a French woman are very different.
In France, it needs much care, much skill, much planning, sincerity, and art to conquer a woman worthy to be attacked. One might believe that there were certain formalities to fulfill, all equally necessary, the last as much as the first. But success was frequent unless one was a beginner or the fair adversary, one of those dragons of virtue who have sworn never to fall. There were many of this kind, but with them an experienced man never compromised his reputation. He soon discovered what he might reasonably expect, and retired before the world learnt of his accident. About French women, I will speak of Mademoiselle Arnaud, so well known for her repartees. She had seemingly been witty before I knew her. I saw her rather frequently, during 2 or 3 years. Yet I did not once catch her in the act of a piquant or witty saying. But wit has its grand climacteric. It declines like the body, and gradually passes away, though less rapidly than beauty. I was always expecting what I had been told and only finding what she actually said gleam never brilliancy, fluttering no great stroke. Her suppers were worse even than her conversation and her alleged bon mot. One went to them as one expected the others, out of habit. In other countries, many women resist a plan of attack or a whole system of seduction, yet succumb on a single occasion born of a chance that will never occur again. I have noticed that you invite a French woman to love you with the words, "Je vous aime," while the same words might almost invite a foreigner to defend herself. Two things must be owned. One is that there are perhaps more beautiful women in England than elsewhere, and that the other, that when an English woman sets out to be ugly, she goes beyond anything, as if to cheer other women.
But don't worry, Alex adores his English woman. He has spent 5 years in England and he is perfectly fluent in English. He has courted, dated, and sometimes even loved with passion a lot of English ladies. Naturally passionate and volcanic, Alexandre de Tilly can be very creative when it comes to vengeance, and when he has been dismissed by a woman he still loves.
To my surprise, a letter came from Adeline, as well as a sweetmeat box adorned with her portrait, which I had forgotten at her rooms. The letter contained a quite formal dismissal, a very solemn farewell. She reckoned on my friendship, she promised me hers, all quite charming. Vexed at being dismissed so flatly, I grew mad in my vengeance and love. At last came the news that she was back. I obtained an interview, and a promise was made that if I would be calm, she would devote herself exclusively to me. This cool assurance killed my love on the spot, and left in my heart no other longing but for revenge. I at once set about it, and to make sure of my success, paid court to her deadly enemy. This was Mademoiselle Dufayel. I possessed of enough charm to make one forget her gallantry, and of a face pretty enough to fit her wit. They hated each other and lived practically in the same street. I planned my attack so skillfully that on the very same day I was to love them both and receive their favors. I wrote to one that I suddenly had to go into the country, and to the other, Adeline, that I should be at her disposal for the evening. All went well. Tender promise, ecstatic passion, renewed of an undying love, delicate excuses for the past. Nothing was lacking. "So you love me?" I asked her. "More than ever. You no longer wish to leave me. Rather die." "Well then die, for you will never see me again." She wanted to scream, but I was gone. That very evening, I dispatched a message to Mademoiselle Dufayel. I had inquired if I could invite myself for supper. We were almost dropping off to sleep when knocks were heard which shook the house. "Open!" called a furious voice from the hall. "Open, worthless rival who took my lover from me. And as for you, monster," that was I, "you shall see." I slipped on scanty clothes and found a little stairway to an upper room, the Grace's laboratory, abode of cosmetics and all the secret of the toilet, the arsenal of my divinity's most triumphant weapons. After long parleys, Adeline retreated in battle array to her house. I had risked my life, for I was frozen, so I went back to bed, which was but fair. The rejected lady was childish enough to become ill from vexation, and when, for a week on, she had seen my cabriolet ostentatiously at her rival's door, I thanked Mademoiselle Dufayel for her courtesy and went elsewhere.